All right. There we go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another weekly conclave with the Church of the Sacred Synthesis. It's such an honor to join you today and bring some of these important topics forward. Our weekly conclaves feature conversations around ceremony, energetics, medicine, and then our weekly or our monthly freestyle conversation called the Hero's Dose, where we talk about various topics that from the taboo to the insane to things that are submitted from you, the membership, and allows us to explore things that we're not uh, thinking of at that moment. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Benjamin Moore, and I'm joined by
Carla Crochet. Hi. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. And I will go over some announcements. So we have some things coming up this week. First thing is Wednesday. We get to start the book club that I'll be leading. I'm excited. It's Gabrielle Bernstein's book, May Cause Miracles. It's a 40-day sort of reflection meditation situation that we will gather each week. On Wednesday. So that starts this Wednesday. And then Thursday, of course, we have the Energetics Conclave with the beautiful Cynthia, and that will be all about connecting with the earth. And then we have a light wand ceremony on the 23rd. So that's basically the announcements at this moment. Um, yeah, so we can just dive
awesome.
right in.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
So there are some things that generally, like, as a facilitator, I do not tell people what to do or which ceremony to come to. However, I might guide them in a certain way after asking certain questions and getting to know them. So there are some things that the person may want to sort of look at, and there none of the things that we sort of discuss are wrong or bad or any of the things like that. They're just, uh, uh, they're just some things just go in different places. They're just easier for you
Sure.
as a participant. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, in the perspective of if you're a participant, so we're, just for some context here, Carla and I are both facilitate plant medicine experiences for individuals in ceremony, either solo or group, and sometimes work with medium or larger groups. And so, um, the idea to bring forward this conversation around like what's best for the participant from the perspective of a facilitator, and is a group experience what's best for them or a solo experience. And I think it's such an important conversation because oftentimes participants come to these types of experiences without any context around like how they're going to feel, what the energy's like, some things around transference, which we'll get into a little bit later, and then how to handle and manage their own energy field and what that's gonna feel like, what empathy feels like. Sometimes people have been so closed off for so long. These are foreign emotions to them. So I think it's so important to have some wisdom around the perspective of what is best for them. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is going to be really great. So I think that we can just, I mean, ideally we'll just follow this flow really, and it will help streamline things and bring
Yeah.
some focus around these different topics that will be important for people. So I think first let's talk about energetic sensitivities,
Yeah.
which can really help people understand what they're getting themselves into. So would you like to lead us off on that?
Yeah. I would love to, because I had an issue with this at first as a participant in ceremony. I had for probably a year, all I did was purge, throw up in every ceremony I was in, and I realized that I was
And these are group
taking on
ceremonies.
these were all group
Okay,
ceremonies,
got it.
and I realized I'm like no one else was doing that. So I'm like, what's happening? It's not. I realized it's not even me anymore. This is not even my stuff. I'm like, what is this? And I realized I was taking on everybody's energy. So there comes that's going to happen to really probably everybody at first because it just kind of does. But um, there comes sort of a choice time that you can go like, I'm not going to do that anymore. But knowing that that may happen and maybe working with the medicine in a smaller way until that sort of thing gets a little bit better. But that just happens. That like, are you sensitive to people's energies in Walmart and in just normal places? Does it? Are you anxious around other people? Like, is there like like, are you closed off? Like, all those things may make it better in group because the beauty of the group, is like so loving and such a beautiful space if with the in the right setting, that it could help. But normally their first time doing it, I would suggest a private just for that specific reason, for those reasons. But um, and I mean, it's just a given when you open yourself up energetically that you're gonna feel everybody's stuff.
Yeah, and I think you bring a really really important focus where this isn't a one size fits all. I think it's knowing the individual person and their needs and where they are, and which is so important for if you're a participant to, if you're not screening yourself, or if you're going to a group experience and there's no questions to be answered, then this is really important to do some self exploration around, like, going to places. If you're nervous to go to places, then there may be already energy sensitivities that you're experiencing, right? If you're experiencing fear around being in crowds or being in like stimulating places, that can be an indication that you are very sensitive to external stimulus or the energy of other people, other beings, other flows. So um, that that energy imprinting can be heightened with psychedelics,
Mhm.
especially in group ceremony. You can become very sensitive to this flow of energy. So um, having certain practices can help, but also doing, as Carlos mentioning, I think doing some solo work initially, if you're in that type of position, can help bring some self actualization. It's like building the building blocks of self first, and it's not like you create defense mechanisms to block it, but it's really to enable you to feel it and allow it to flow through, and not hold on to it. Because as Carla was mentioning about purging and not knowing where that was coming from, right? It's like I've seen this myriad of times, and also felt in myself where you kind of in a group setting, kind of come out of the, if you're wearing a mask, or for me, I usually wear like a beanie so I can pull it down over my eyes and pull it over, keep my head warm because I don't have any built-in heating elements. So, but I pull my mask up, and you look around, and see people struggling, see people laughing. So there's a combination of things that are happening, and oftentimes, as a human, most of us have empathy, unless you have some other thing that we're working with. But empathy is a natural occurring emotional state for us. And so when we, especially under psychedelic medicines like mushrooms, ayahuasca, these are empathogenic. So they allow us to feel the flow of the energy of the world. And when you see someone struggling, it's natural, it's innate to want to extend help. And what we believe as human beings is if we think about them, it's going to help them. There's something about it, right? I mean, you can even just see it in like the TV news where it's like, I need to think about this problem because if I don't, I'm like doing it harm. And the truth is, what the problem needs is you to be fully with yourself, right? And that's through practice. That's through practice. And once we can get there in that wholesome place, or at least have some sort of self actualization, then we can take the mask off and say, they're in their process. I love them. I support them, but I don't have to hold it because
Yeah.
I trust that they've got this, right? But that's comes
And
through that comes through experience, right? And I think what that does also, interestingly enough, it brings us into our next. into the next topic, which is being in emotional readiness.
Mm.
Um, and so, I basically just explained what that means to me is being prepared in that self. So what is that? Does that ring any chords for you? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, emotional readiness would be have can you sit first of all, can you, like, sit still? Is Are you able to sit still and are you able to meditate? Have you done a little bit of inner work? Is this just the first thing you're ever like, there's so many, um, ways to ready yourself in this way. So, meditation, other ceremonial work that doesn't contain sacraments if they don't want. It could just be, ritual work, cleansing, different things like that, grounding, just stillness. I think stillness is just really important and breathing, like breath work, think just the basics so that you're ready, like, you're ready to, like, do the things that you gotta do to get through the ceremony, 'cause
Right.
they are not, no ceremony is, they're all, unpredictable,
Sure.
completely, like, who knows? Yeah, so to ready yourself like that is really important to be able to just sit in a space and hold it for the people and allow the facilitators to handle the things that are happening or whatever, and for you to just sit in that stillness and allow yourself to be with yourself, Um,
Yeah, I think that you definitely bring an important point around the preparation part, of showing up to, if you're going to do group work, having some foundation around stillness, meditation, breath, different somatic techniques to bring yourself back into center, right? And maybe this even speaks to we're sort of going beyond just approaching ceremony from a group or a self, uh, or approaching a group or a self-led ceremony. It's more like, eventually the eventuality is, hopefully we make it to a group ceremony, right? If we're someone who is emotionally struggling and in some state of isolation and unable to be in a group setting and starting to work with psychedelics alone, sort of how we're offering ceremony here, where we are inviting people into a virtual container where they can be at home, they can be alone in their own catharsis, in their own energy movement, and create a lot of stability in self. And then doing some of these practices, and that creates a lot of, like, I think, self stability, scaffolding, and then they get to go into a group ceremony, and they bring with them these experience. I think the breath, being able to ground into the state, ground into the space, and allow other people to be in their process without having to be involved in it. Yeah,
mhm,
sometimes it takes practice and experience, right? And so I think this is actually kind of leading us into a way of exploring the self versus the group. What is so important? What is important first, right? I mean, there's all these different, say, like
mhm,
social philosophies around, like hierarchy, like I think like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is an approach to self fulfillment, where it starts with like basic principles of safety and security, and then it leads at the very top is self actualization, be fully self actualized, where you can go and be in life and you're a full being, like the world isn't affecting you per se. It's because you're choosing not to allow it to, and it's not like you don't feel it or anything. It's more like you're so full of yourself in a good way that you're able to go into places and be and allow things to transpire without them affecting your process. And so, um, and with that, as we continue to move forward, it brings us into a beautiful segue into, as we get emotionally regulated and we're able to actually show up, thinking about the intention. What is the intention? What is how do we even create an intention? Is this for trauma or for discovery or expansion? And so, Do you have anything to add with the intention?
Absolutely. I mean, that's to me like, whew, that's a big one because if you know that you need some major help, right? And you really need to do some deep work, and you know that maybe someone just passed, maybe some traumatic event just happened, and like there's a whole thing that needs to be dealt with, right? Um, that might be that might be a good time for a private ceremony because it may be big, big, right? Dense for other people to be around. And we want to, we're not, I don't just think about the participant, I think about everybody in the
Right.
group. So, like the participants, right? So, everybody. So, but, so if that kind of thing is if that's your intention, then that I would say for sure private or solo. But again, if it's solo, very, very small dosing on that, but a private ceremony, totally go in, do the work, get it all done. Group, if you're going and you want to like experience community and like laughter and song
Hmm.
and beating on the drums with everybody and all that, dude, it's such a beautiful experience to get all the things done that you got to get done, and then it's like celebration time. You've
That's
done
right.
all the work. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for that group community collaboration, which is such a beautiful way for that self actualized being, that person that is showing up um, to be in the collective, right?
Mm,
And I've seen it so many times where there's individuals who seem to be closed off or maybe more reclusive. They don't speak up in groups or participate. And being in a group ceremony, especially, so we can maybe contextualize this, which there's different approaches
mhm,
to having a group ceremony. Some of them are strictly like retreat healing, like there's not any sort of group dynamic. It's more of there's just a group element, and then there's a lead facilitator, like in some oftentimes like ayahuasca circle,
right.
right, where you have a lead facilitator and then you're a participant and that's it.
And that's it.
And then there are group ceremonies where it's a collaborative experience, right? And so being in an experience where um, we're all adding to the energy, we all can
Mhm.
bring music. When music's being played, we can shake our shakers or hit
Right.
our drum, right? And then co-create that energy healing vortex that can swirl between all the people that are there. And that's such a powerful transformational tool, even though we maybe not look at it as that. Individuals who have been alone and uh, say like withdrawn, this is such a powerful invitation for them to come forward and to be a part of a group that is there for us, for all of us, if we're in this group together, to heal. And I say beyond heal, it's to expand, right? If we're this big of a being, like the monad, we're just a
Mm.
being, and we can bring more people in. The way I visualize it is it just becomes like the flower of life, like all these different circles stacked onto each other, like Venn diagrams, like, and it continues to go as we bring more of ourselves fully into a group ceremony, right? Um, and in that, I think it's important to approach things, as you say, with intention, right? What is the intention of this experience for you, the individual? Because again, I've been in group ceremonies where there's individuals who were not coming to be a part of the group, right? Their intention is like, I need to release ancestral trauma, or I need to, find out the reason why my wife left me, or whatever they're looking for. But it's
Yeah.
so interesting because oftentimes that normally it gets distilled down into a direction or a path of view, because the group, in a group dynamic, the group kind of like can swallow that up and be like, no, we're, because what happens with the group stuff is you don't realize there's so many things you need that you're not addressing, but the group or a group of people can help bring that forward.
Right.
right? It's oftentimes we close ceremony and people are like, wow, I didn't know I needed that. I didn't
Mhm.
know I needed to get up and like move my body and dance. I'm like, oh yeah, you need to move this. If the invitation here is whatever's coming forward to just to allow it, just to
Yeah.
allow it to move. Um, and
Yeah.
obviously that comes with experience. That comes with like working with medicines and working with communities and starting to learn and feel into that energy. That may
Mhm.
not happen the first time, right? That may take subsequent experiences, and that also may be driven out by doing this work alone. I can tell
Mhm.
you when I started working with plant medicines, I was doing solo journeys primarily, like every a couple times a month, up to a couple times a month, deep dive journeys. But the way it would work was I would go in and do the work, and always like the first third of the experience was always like whatever, like actualizing myself, seeing myself, forgiving myself
Mhm.
for not doing enough or not being enough or whatever it was. And then I would move into like the expansion phase where I was able to um, when I was able to fully forgive myself for that acute thing that I had been spinning on, I'd be like, wow, like I'm so grateful to be alive. Like there's so many beautiful things in the world. And then it would go into celebration. It's almost like always this like tiered experience.
It is.
And being able to do that alone because of the background, because I was still in the army while I was doing this, I didn't have safety in doing it in groups. Like nobody could know,
Right.
right? So I had to. So, but that led me into fully actualizing myself and my path, and then I could go into a group setting, and I could really contribute to the group setting. I wasn't necessarily, not that it's bad, and so I want to make sure I contextualize this.
Yeah.
There's no problem with going into a group setting and receiving, fully just receiving, receiving, receiving. That is perfectly good. That is okay. If you need that, do that. Um, but I was able to go into the group and in my mind, I'm like, I want to contribute. How do I add? How do I add to this? Like I've already received everything I need. How do I contribute to this group? And it was through music, it's through help, it's through talking, it's through connection. And didn't have to like bring anything, obviously, but I would still bring like snacks for afterwards. But it's not like I had to give them anything. It's just my presence. Being present was the gift. So I learned that obviously in time, and I think that if you're someone that's exploring psychedelics, this is something you'll learn as well as time goes on.
Yeah,
So
of
I
course.
don't know, and maybe I.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, as you were talking, a couple things stood out, and you were talking about how, like, this one person could be sort of a hermit or like recluse and not really go out and kind of scared to go out. Well, that person, when they do, so it could go either way. If they do go to the group thing, then typically they'll realize, first of all, this is the first time I'm accepted fully. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh
this
yeah.
is the first time I feel completely accepted. It's such a strange, and then like this whole thing starts happening that sort of changes you a little bit. It might take longer for some people than others, but um that was one of the things. I don't even, there was so much that you said. Um it's so good. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Oh yeah. Of course.
But yeah.
And that, and as you're saying that, it's just. I think this is helping segue us into. We'll skip ahead because we talked about experience as we move forward, but like social
Mm.
dynamics and how you relate to yourself and others.
Mm.
So I'd love if you'd want to lead on that, like
Yep.
comfort or vulnerability around being vulnerable, and then like some different emotional states that people become aware of.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the bottom line is you may cry, you may, that there may be emotions that come up that you completely break down and start crying or laugh or whatever it may be. So there needs to be being okay with yourself to allow that to be seen by other people, like it's all of the, when you realize everyone's going to kind of be doing the same thing, it's ever, it kind of becomes okay. But are you able to be vulnerable in front of other people? Um, are you, yeah, do you carry social specific anxiety? Like, are you nervous around a bunch of people or just a few people that you don't know? However, the space being so different that it becomes so easy once you get there, probably. But still, if there's a social anxiety or a social, some sort of like shame or sort of a thing that you have, maybe you don't feel like you look a certain way for the group. Like, maybe you think everybody got to look like a hippie or something, like whatever it is, like, and you don't, yeah, whatever it is, if those kind of things can play a little role too. Like, like what is, are you, do you typically sit back and just sort of like judge everyone and like, like what is your social style? Like it's okay. Like it's just different levels of it, right? So it's just what is your social style if you're one of those that just sits there? Because I've seen all this in the thing, in the ceremony. So I've noticed that those people just end up like being closed off and sort of having making a little bit of a strange vibe ripple in the atmosphere, and um, and so that's just, judge, compare. Like, are you the type of person to sit there and be like, there's a chick over there that's, wearing this pretty dress. Like, is that what you're going to focus on? Like, compare yourself to someone else that she's prettier than me, or like something's good. Like, if you have some mental noise that's all day long, like, it might just make it bigger for a little while. Oh, wait, I don't hear you anymore. I don't hear you.
Yeah, what you're bringing up is such an important awareness. And I was as you were talking, I was thinking the importance of you, not you, Carla, but the viewer, participant, to take honest inventory of themselves, right? So it's so wise to take honest inventory and without judgment, right? Like, and answering those certain questions, like how do I show up in a group? Do I sit back and witness and assign meaning to an individual based on how they dress, how they speak, how they carry themselves, and
How they look.
do I use that to compare myself to them, how I'm showing up? And that's perfectly okay, um, because the whole key here is to fully identify where you are in the process, in your own process. And this will give you a good indication of how to approach a ceremony, whether it's a group or solo, right? Because again, I'll go back to, I won't tell the allegory all over again, but if you are that type of person, where I was that person, and it's just because of the nature of my life and my job, where I was very discerning. I would go into
Mm.
a group or a crowd, and I would evaluate everyone. Military age male. Uh, is there avenues of approach, ingress, egress, like all these different like military training stuff, but also, but that also translates into judgment. Even though I'm not necessarily saying like you're a icky person or you're a pretty person, it's still a form of that, and just maybe different languaging attached to it. And so I'll say to people who are thinking about it, it's like take really honest inventory of where you are without judgment, and just be like, okay, this is just what I do. And what that can do is help you to either create strategies around how to work with that, or literally fully accepting that and then still coming, right? Because that's the whole point, is going into a place that is uncomfortable and going into a place that is going to create, uh, let's say, like minor stressors, because stress is an opportunity for growth. Rumi says the wound is where the light enters you, and I think it's so important to realize that where we feel discomfort or we feel wounding is an opportunity for us to go in there and suture it and close that wound, and not necessarily like have to have it reflect on our entirety of a being, but that's just a part. And like, oh, okay, there's a wound there. How can I address that and then continue to show up? Because honestly, like my invitation here, and I'm sure the theme of this will be continuing to invite people into group, right? Starting out starting out, however you need to be. If you are very, very hyper vigilant, solo what's probably best to start. But the idea is eventually to get people into a group, and I don't want to say that a persuasive, but when you can get into a group when you're vulnerable, then guess what? Being out there in the store, in a group of people, in a crowd, that's going to be easy. It's going to be super easy because you've been vulnerable. If you've been vulnerable around strangers a few times, and even if it's a small group of strangers, it makes being not vulnerable, it makes being normal around people, if you have like social anxiety, much easier. Because then you can be like, yeah, maybe they're judging me, but I don't care because I've learned how to flow the energy through me. I don't have to hold on or attach to it or even empathize with it, because you learn that emotional regulation through doing these types of works. And that leads us into, I think, some of the most important things. Well, gosh, I won't say the most important
I
things,
don't either. I don't either.
because this is something that, you know it's a word. The word is integration, right? And it's so interesting because, I'll say 5 years ago it didn't exist. Like, this wasn't a concept around psychedelics. And not that it's not important, it's very important, but what does it mean? There's so many different ways in which we can um, use the concept of integration to benefit us. And so what does that mean to us, and how can you use the concept of bringing the parts together, right? Integration is, literally is bringing all the parts together to make whole. So if we are, let's say, scattered parts or wounded parts, bringing them all together, and what and how can we bring them in to make whole? But also, what type of integration support does does an individual have? Do you have as a participant? Like, um, is if you're going to a group ceremony, is there integration support, right? Is there a group integration support, or is there one-to-one integration, or do you have access to a coach or someone that can help you to ground the information and the energy that you've experienced and then apply it into your life, so that you're able to actually utilize the teachings, the tools that came through. So, um, I'll just I'll
Yeah,
just yeah, defer to you in this moment. Like, do you have any thoughts around? I
yeah,
mean, obviously, the question is, do you have a good support system? But
yeah,
is there things that people should look for in their system, that, or in their experience, that is an indicator is of if they have good support in that circle?
yeah. So for me, I have every single ceremony I've ever been to has had a support or has had a like integration chat or something after, at least some sort of a chat where everyone in there could go. So I do think it's very important to have like whatever you want to call it, but I do think it's important to have some people that you can speak to, that you can talk about it to. If you're having trouble, if you're having any type of like mental attacks, like things happening after that are just not normal, that you have someone that you can call. As far as really the facilitator should just or someone that has to do with the retreat or whatever that you went to should sort of be available for like a major like something's really going on here.
Yeah,
I think that's important, totally.
very, very.
Yeah, because sometimes it's just like integrating the magic of the sacrament into everyday life, which is just going outside and learning how to connect to nature on your own without using anything. And then some of the integration is like these huge traumatic events and like uncovering things that you didn't even know happened because you had compartment. I've seen so many things come up that people didn't even know happened, and they have to deal with that like some
That's right.
super trauma. It's like, so on those, there just needs to be some support, I believe, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And I'll just comment on some different approaches to integration to look out for that can be really helpful. So there is this, as you're sharing, like uncovering certain woundings and certain things that you may not have known existed. And so, what sort of support do you have around understanding and accepting those things, right? And uh, oftentimes those things can be missed, and those feelings can be missed if we don't really address them and bring them into awareness. And so, obviously, like writing, and if you do like we have these great devices, these like phones, which you can just record yourself speaking. Some people don't write often, right? But I think everybody pretty much talks in some form. So recording some things that are coming out, but even in a more grandiose approach, like some of the retreats that I work with, they have a very robust integration program. And what I've learned through it is uh, it can help you bring awareness to these parts that are wounded, but also insert strategies into the system that helps us usurp those things. And what I mean by that is that these experiences that are coming forward, that may be wounds or maybe things that are unaddressed, they're not they're not necessarily you anymore. But what they are is this, like a movie that needs to be seen. It's like watching or reading a book of the story of life, and like, okay, without knowing those things, then there's like a wonder, like, oh, why do I do this, or why do I have this behavior? But when you know, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. You can actually close that chapter, and then I think learn to accept it. Say, oh, this is where this scar came from. I get it
That's
now.
right.
You know,
I feel
like,
like it's little puzzle pieces putting a puzzle back together,
right.
right? And then it's like the people could have been like experiencing something their whole life and not even know what it was from, and it's from this thing, and you're just putting a little piece back together. It's like,
That's right. That's right.
"Hmm,
And so, as an individual who is an adult who's approaching these, this is why it's so important. Yes, we have facilitators and guides and integration coaches, but I'll just say the responsibility is on you, the person who's taking these medicines, the person who's going into ceremony. There's this weird, I keep seeing it all over the place. It's like I have to protect everybody syndrome with all these, it's like the virtue commentary on social and all over the place, where there's an expectation um, that a facilitator is supposed to keep a participant safe. And I understand that there's a professional client um, uh, facilitator relationship where there is supposed to be some wisdom and some professionalism and some all that's, of course. However, as an adult human being that's totally responsible for their own actions and choices, it's vital for you, if you're not getting enough, if you feel like there's things that are missed, to go and find things, read books. That's why there's self-help books everywhere. There's no burning books. There's no book censorship. There's no well, maybe there's video censorship around certain things like breasts. Maybe I don't think you can show breasts on YouTube, but but the tools are available. And so I always make tools available. I'm sure you make the tools available to people that you're working with, which is important. But it's up to you to follow them. I've had so much recidivism in ceremonies where I've had people have to return and return and return because they're not doing the work. And you could from the outside say, well, it's a facilitator issue. I'm like, it's a willingness to accept that I am in total control of myself and my actions, and that the results that I receive are the results that I actually am willing to work for. So because just as myself, I have my own work to do. I don't say I'm not successful because my mentor didn't force me to sit at my desk and do the work. If I'm not successful, it's because I didn't follow the program, or I didn't choose to continue to grow beyond the program. So the program is not meant for you to live in it. It's meant to give you a stair to continue to step up, 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 up until you get to a place where you're comfortable. You're like, okay, I can be here. This is nice. Um, So, wow, that really was a great. I think we rounded that out really good, and I feel really complete talking about group versus solo. And I know we went on some tangents, and I appreciate the patience there. I know we kind of like I like to weave and move things.
It was all
Um,
relevant. It felt.
yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you have that you'd like to leave us with around this topic?
I don't think so. It's like I come up with things here and there, and then I forget them. But
Okay,
but I
perfect.
believe that we really did a good job at thoroughly providing like basic, real information to people that can really make an informed decision. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what the
same.
point was. So,
Same. And so, what I'm really inviting you as a viewer to do is take an inventory of where you are. Honestly, I think we spoke a little earlier. Just take an honest inventory of where you are, and then use that to explore where you best fit. And what I'll say is, if you don't know, ask. You can send us an email, info@thesacredsynthesis.com. Ask us. We're a group of professionals. We work in this capacity professionally, and we do this as an act of love to offer ways for all of you to continue to expand in your own works and do this with yourself and your community. So I encourage you to reach out, ask for help, ask for questions. We as a church, as a group, as a community, we rely on your feedback. If we don't get your feedback, we just continue to share things from our perspective, which is great because you may get things that you don't know you need, but we can be sharing things that we don't know you need if you ask us and tell us, hey, I need to learn about this, or I'd like to talk about or address these things. So the real invitation here is for us to all to participate together. And it's really lovely, actually, as I'm thinking about it, to think about that we are a group, and so let's be in ceremony together. Let's grow and expand together. Let's see our vulnerabilities. I have vulnerabilities. I had surgery last week, and if you tuned in the last week's conclave, I was in a lot of pain, so I may have been a little loopy, and but that's great. I can accept where I am and where I was, and so that's an invitation for all of us to do the same, to know that we aren't and don't have to be uh, perfect, like square screen would tell us we have to be. Right? We can be flexible and wobbly, and that makes us beautiful. So yeah, I guess I'll just leave you with that. Thank you so much, everyone, so much for tuning in. And as Carla shared earlier, a book club starts next week. So if you're registering, sign up for that. Check the member calendar for upcoming events. There are things that are being added. November 23rd is our next group experience where it's going to be a light wand ceremony. There'll be more information shared about that. We'd really like to get as many people involved as possible. The next theme is around more celebration and fun. We're going to bring some different elements that are going to be more exciting to all of you, and continue on this expansion. And then also stay tuned for next. I think the first quarter of next year, we're aiming to do some in person work as a community. So really looking forward to designing that and bringing that forward. So just stay tuned, and we love you.
yeah. Thank y'all.
All right,
Bye,
bye
Ben.
everyone.